All right, thank you. Ooh, it's kind of weird being the tallest guy in the room, yeah? No, that's okay. Thank you, Cameron, for humbling me. Anyway, today's story is my journey back to God. So rather than show you my cat pictures, because I don't want to offend dog lovers like Frank and Sparky, we're going to talk about okay, I was born spoiled. And I wasn't faithful to God either. But He did help me finish my bucket list. Okay? And also how I carried a lot of hate that blocked me from going back to God. So just the three stories. So the first one is my introduction to God. It was actually before I was born, because my mom was a Christian because her dad, my grandfather, wanted to raise his kids as Americans. So they lived in Maui, and the closest church was Kahului Union Christian Church. So a lot of our family members go there. So I was always surrounded by Christians. Okay. And my first choice, my first church was in Kalihi. We grew up in Kalihi. I spent 3.5 years there. So I'm not tough like other Kalihi guys because I didn't go to school there. Okay. But my brother and sister did, and they were pretty tough. So let me show you the first slide. Yeah. As usual, I'm the shortest one. Okay. Yeah, we're only 2 years apart, but I was slow in everything, including maturing and growing. My brother, on the other hand, was very quick. He grew up to be 5'9". Yeah. And my sister was a go-getter and, perfectionist, opposite of me. Okay? And the spoiled part is my sister is the oldest daughter of the oldest daughter of the oldest daughter. I mean, my great-grandmother, grandmother, my mom, and her were all oldest daughters. And my brother, he was the oldest among us cousins on my mom's side, sisters. He was the oldest. And then the whole generation, he was the oldest male. So they had a lot of expectations and legacy to live up to. I had nothing. Okay? So, and my dad was also the oldest, so that put a lot of pressure on my brother as well. They were my first role models till checkers and pogo took their place. Okay? All right. Okay, the next slide. These are my cousins that grew up on Oahu. My mom had two sisters. They're all close. And, I had a cousin, male cousin, 3 months older than me and 3 months younger. I always had a playmate. My poor sister had to wait 7 years before the first female cousin came along. And my brother was so big and advanced, he couldn't fit in the little toys we had, like the little carts. And to add to that, next slide, on my dad's side, even though my dad was the oldest, I was a baby. Yeah. And I didn't know this till I was at a funeral this year. And my cousin Pearl next to me, who's only 3 months older than me, says, Grandpa always said you were cute. And I said, he never said that to me. And then I realized he probably said that to all the other cousins, because that's why they picked on me so much. Yeah. But sad to say, most of them were on Maui and the mainland. So my brother and sister, even though they were in the middle, they didn't have the playmates I did. Yeah. So anyway, also God surrounded me with a lot of good people. My first organization was Boy Scouts of America. The reason why is in my day, if you couldn't play sports, you were in Boy Scouts. And where's Jensen? I gotta tell you a sports story. I was so lousy in sports that when I played softball, if I hit the ball, was either to the pitcher or first baseman. Yeah. Okay. Just for you, I had that story. Okay. But, and also as an adult, I joined the JCs, mainly because my female friend, who's my fourth grade classmate, said, Irwin, all my girlfriends are married. I don't have any single girlfriends. Come and join the JCs. Maybe I can find one for you. And I did. And funny, both organizations in the oath that we said at every meeting had the word God in it. Another reminder, okay? And also, next slide is my classmates and college. One thing God was good at is I always ended up in a group, okay? My high school friends, this is an older one, our 30th high school reunion. We still get together anytime somebody comes back from the mainland. And my college kids, they helped me through a lot. I mean, I went to college thinking like, oh yeah, I'm the artist, but I was humble because they were good artists. But I learned a lot from them, and they helped me through the career. Till this day, I see one of them come into my store. So it's kind of nice that he wants to say hello to me. So I was like, okay, I wasn't that bad after all. And the last picture, of course, is church. I was welcomed into a group. I don't know if it was voluntarily or by force, but I was in there. Yeah. And the ironic thing is, two ministers in my life walked into Wellspring as Jay Jarman and Howard Yoshida. And I was shocked, like, okay, God, did you set this up or what? I mean, how cool is that? And my current job at City Mill, I saw all four ministers, 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah. Jay, Howard, and Pastor Dale, and Nathan Kouashi was in the store. Nathan and Dale I saw right after Nathan moved to a care home. They're looking for storage boxes, and I'm thinking like, there's a City Mill in Kaneohe. Why did they come all the way here? But I just figured, you know, God is just checking up on me because kind of a water bozo, right? So, you know, for those of you who have seen me in the store, I know that God's checking up on me through you. And where's Stephen? The famous John Fukumai entered the store. Keep an eye on it. And also, Daryl's shop is next to City Mill. I see him often as well. So yeah, Wadabozu, that's right, yeah. If I say any terminology that's questionable, ask Yumiko. Any local, you know, you gotta ask some other people, yeah. She may not know, yeah. Like Potot is a local name, yeah. Anyway, so my life started to change when my grandmother died, right when I was going to enter the high school. It caused a pause, as I said, you know, I can't wait for God to make me taller or stronger. I gotta do something. I don't know if that was just me leaning on my own understanding or he kind of put it in there. So I joined the wrestling team, a sport that doesn't involve a ball, right? And I did well. I made the team, lost 20 pounds. I dislocated my wrist during preseason, but made it through the season. So all of a sudden now, I was very confident and I had a good outlook in life. Like, I can do anything. And I didn't thank God for that either. So also, it was a time where my sister was in college. My brother was about to graduate. I was getting busy in sports. During the summer, I took up judo to emulate my other idol, Kikaida, And my mom gave us the option. Church is not mandatory, it's optional. So I dropped out of 9th grade Sunday school church. Okay. And then that summer, I was busy with high school friends, judo, what have you. And I decided, well, since my wrestling coach is married to the cross-country coach, I should join cross-country. And it's kind of weird because I'm not built as a runner, as you can see. And I figured, okay, my best friend is there. Hey, and there are girls on the cross-country team. But I didn't think it through. All those girls could outrun me. It's just, like I said, I wasn't as bright as my siblings were. So I started running, and as usual, I started having more injuries than I did in wrestling. So during doctor examination, x-ray of my back, they went, uh-oh, you have spondylolisthesis. I go, what is that? Well, you had it from birth probably, so we can't sign you off on wrestling, judo, any contact sports. In fact, doctor said, you better think about a desk job for your career. I was like, man, I just got everything. Confidence, I figured I was going to join the army, see what's beyond Hilo, and come back and maybe do something like fireman or whatever. Now I couldn't. But I guess God had a plan that I didn't know of it. I mean, I should appreciate I got a letter from judo and wrestling. So the athlete part was taking care of it. But, I just grumbled to God, like, why'd you do that? Not being grateful. So anyway, I always had art. That's something that my brother and sister didn't have that made me different. Luckily, Monolo High School was kind of new, kind of small. Teachers are real close. They all talk about each other. And I had the legacy of my brother and sister, so they knew I was the third Nakasone and very different. So, they kept an eye on me. My art teacher pushed me. And what happens is she put me in the advanced class with all the top artists. And my classmates had good artists. One of the famous ones that came out of my class was Patrick Ching, the nature artist. Yeah. So that was neat to see him work and learn from him and everything. But that also gave me time to prep for my career. And my athletic friends, they never disowned me in anything. They kept me involved. A lot of them were in band. They said, hey, Irwin, can you draw the band yearbook cover? Okay, I did that. So I got to stay in the air-conditioned band room because back in those days, there weren't too many air-conditioned rooms. So I got to stay in there, okay? And I got into, as you can see, the pictures I showed earlier, a good group of artists in the Honolulu Community College and great teachers too as well. So all that prep time I had actually was to my advantage. God's timing was great. And I didn't thank him for it. So while that was going on, another hurdle came. I just started my first advertising job, and I gave myself 5 years to get in an ad agency, and I did it in 5 months, all thanks to God. And let me tell you about my dad. My dad wasn't supportive. You're either a winner or a loser. He had a temper, and you didn't know what would set him off. So there are emotional scars all three of us had. I think till this day, I think my brother and sister took the brunt of it. Okay? And he also said he was a Christian, but he never went to church. He golfed. I found out that's called a 18-hole Aventus. Now, this is the part where the hate came in. I was the only one at home at the time, and my dad beat up my mom. In fact, I had to pull him off. And now that I think about it, thank God I didn't join the army, because I'd be away from home, and who knows what would happen to my mom. And my mom, being the sweet lady, pulled me out of the room before I could hit him back. She grabbed me by this arm. I didn't know it was up and ready to go. And long story short, it took about 4 years for her to file a divorce. And God provided the right people at the right time at the right place. My sister's college classmate worked at the bank in a loan department. She also was my surrogate older sister, because my sister was on Maui. So she set up the mortgage and everything. And my neighbors in Molo Gardens, that's where the house was, the two sons were in property investments. So they offered to pay us good money for the house and not have to deal to realtors. In fact, they even found us a realtor to where I currently live in Aiea. So it all lined up. My uncles chipped in and helped, and we moved out. But yeah, come to think of it, I buried my hate because, one, I look like my dad. And I was saying at the time, oh, I'm a Christian, but I don't go to church. We were even born in the same month. I'm on the 8th and he's on the 11th. And I just buried that because I didn't want anything to do with him. But during that time, God helped me finish my bucket list. And was all through a lot of the people you saw up there. Career goals, athletic goals, travel goals, and I even got married. And even though I didn't know it, but in the back of my mind, you see, my father beat up my mom, and then I found out my grandfather, his father beat up his mom. Is that in my blood? But, I ended up marrying a black belt in karate. I mean, only God could set that one up. Because I didn't know about taking the cord away from the girl to get the girl from John. And I think that was purposely done. But anyway, I carried that hate and I didn't notice. Through the miracles. I mean, in 2010, I was still exercising. I accomplished the Tin Man Century bike ride, all these incredible things thanks to incredible people. And they took an MRI to see what was up. And I had a herniated disc. But it wasn't only a herniated disc. It went right between the nerve. So the aches and pains I wasn't feeling wasn't that. I was extremely lucky, extremely blessed. Did I thank God for that? No. Did I kind of pause? No. I kept going, and going. Then in 2014, before I started coming to Wellspring, I had a stroke. Not just any stroke, kind of a miracle stroke. Because I walked into the hospital, said I had this tingling here and my blood pressure is 180 over 100. So immediately they did all the stroke tests, smile, talk, and do this, and I passed. Then they took an MRI, and then I was kind of nervous taking an MRI, and then the tingling stopped, and I went, ooh, I'm okay. But then they took it, came back and said, you had a stroke. And I went what? You had a stroke. And I didn't mention this before. In 2008, my brother died of a stroke. And during that time, my father had a stroke where he couldn't play golf. He had some physical disabilities. So I'm thinking like, ooh, but the doctor, real good doctor, Dr. Shu at Polymomi, he says, you walked into the hospital. That stroke is in the center of your motor skill brain. I have a feeling it's a tumor. And that scared me because years before, my good friend in the JCs died of a brain tumor. So that was a hard, oh, sorry, Eric, I moved the mic. That was a hard night, you know. And first I was thinking like, okay, I'm gonna die. Oh, what about the mortgage? My mom was just diagnosed with dementia. What about her? Like, you know, all these worried things. Then I got really worried. Like, why am I afraid of dying? I'm a Christian. Like, oh, I am not a Christian. That scared the pants out of me. Couldn't sleep. Couldn't do. Luckily for me, God's blessing, I was working with the Ritas. They had established corporate counsel just before my stroke. And it was their former minister, Reverend Earl Takioka, who was a very good counselor. So David set up for him to come to my house, and I set out everything, my whole life, longer than this speech, by the way. And I said, like, I'm not a Christian. And he goes like, no, you are. Because when you got in trouble, who did you call on? God. You just did it through David and me. And he also said, what is faith? Faith is not tested. So I went, oh, okay. But I was still going through some stroke healing. Found out when the brain, part of the brain dies, it gets rerouted. And by the way, for the next 30 days, this was September, October, I took another MRI. Either I'm going to have a hole in my brain, and that means it was an old stroke, and what they saw was it healing, or that activity they saw was a tumor being fed with blood. So those 30 days, and thank goodness, that's when I started attending here, helped a lot. It turned out I had a hole in my head, which benefit me because every time I do something wrong at home, my wife always has a thing in the back of her mind, he has a hole in his brain. Well, I didn't thank God for that either. So anyway, I mentioned to Rev, I call him Rev, I really want to be a Christian. In fact, I want to be baptized. He said, okay. He gave me a prayer. I think it was a sinner's prayer. I'm not too sure. He says, say this and you'll feel something. So one day I did, and like nothing. Uh-oh. And at the same time, recovering at home, a church member from Kali Union came over. My dad started going to Kali Union when my mom got a divorce. And there was trouble having both of them there because my dad told his story. He left out a lot of details. And then the minister was new, told my mom, you should forgive him. And like finally my mom, didn't go to church, which was very rare for her. So I also had a little bit of hatred for the church as well, carrying that. So when he came down and says, hey, your father's going to have a 90th birthday. We would like one of his family members to be there. I said, no way. I'm recovering from a stroke. I can't do that. So then I had a meeting with Reverend Earl. I guess, hey, I don't feel anything when I do the prayer. Oh, by the way, somebody came down from the church and invited me to my dad's birthday, and I told him no way. And he looked at me like, yeah, that's why you didn't feel anything. You have hate. You got to forgive your dad. And I went like, oh, man. And then I realized, he's so right. So I had to put my faith in God because I was still feeling moments of anxiety. I didn't know. The medication didn't quite kick in yet. So I called back the member. His name was Don Stevenson. And said, hey, I want to meet my dad before the party. I don't want to go to a party. I just want to meet him. And I told him what was going on with me. He said, sure. So we met. And in my mind, the last thing I saw was a monster. And he's a little bit taller than me, so I imagined like, a 10-foot monster beating on my mom. But he walked in, he had suffered from dementia, he's 90 years old, so he's about my height. He's like a little old man, and he says, I don't know if he was thinking I was a little kid, but he talked to me like a little kid. And I tried to tell him, I forgive you for hitting my mom. He had no recollection he hit my mom. In his mind, my mom took his family away. So, and he didn't have his hearing aid, so that made it worse. But it went well. I didn't get any anxiety or anything. And my wife was there with me, and she witnessed that forgiveness. And although her parents were raised Catholic and Christian, she was never raised in the church. But she got to witness that, which even Reverend Earl says, your testament to God will be her witnessing your change. Oh, so finally I got the expectation of. So after we met, it was fine. And Don kept in touch with me. He says, oh yeah, your dad's dementia is getting worse. He surrendered to the state. Did I visit him? No, I didn't. Then I got a call. He suffered a major stroke. And this one was really bad. I went to, I think it was St. Francis West. He was unconscious, and Don told me chances are they're gonna move him to hospice. So I just told him again, I forgive you. It's okay to go. And I left. And nothing. Then I got another call. He's in hospice. Looks like this is it. So I rushed down, and I said the same thing. But this time he opened one eye and stared right at me. Then closed his eye. And then I left, got home. I was just pouring a glass of juice, and I got the phone call. He passed. That kind of left me kind of chicken skin. So I was like, okay. Was he just holding out for someone to forgive him? I don't know. So then came the part like his funeral. He had told Don that, oh yeah, my son has the papers and everything. So I said, yeah, I do, from the divorce. When they got divorced, my mom gave me all the papers and everything, and I had it. And I was at Wellspring for 2 years, and luckily, Pastor Dale would come back from a trip in time to do the service. So that was a real relief for me. And, Pastor Dale has a way of making me feel comfortable and counseled me. And I realized I was going to a funeral with no family members, because I found out during the planning stage, my dad got all his family members upset at him over the claims of his dad's property in Makawao. So he was blackballed from the family. He had nieces that living here, but they said, oh, can't attend. My sister was taking care of my mom, who was also suffering from dementia. She couldn't make it out. So my wife and I had to do this alone. And I got nervous driving to Valley of the Temple. Just about to make the last turn. For some reason, I heard Steve sing, "How Great Is My God." And I went like, okay, that's a little calming. And yes, Eric, his guitar wasn't that loud. Okay. So I got there, still a little nervous. And then two ladies came up to me. They were my librarians from my childhood. One was my elementary school library, and the other one was Kalihi Palamo. I spent time researching. And they says, "Oh, I'm so happy you connected with your dad. We prayed for him back on his 90th birthday that a family member would come, and our prayers were answered." And I went like, oh. And then Pastor Dale being Pastor Dale, I didn't know he had a connection to Kalihi Unions. And the lady came up and says, "Is that Sanderson?" And I said, "Yes." So they all gathered around him. And I remember, I couldn't hear what he's saying, but I remember Pastor Dale says, "I was skinnier back then." And that was the moment that I was totally relaxed. And Pastor Dale actually reminded me of the passage that was given to me. "Trust the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight." So thank you, Pastor Dale, for reminding me of that passage that was given to me. And from then on, I can live in the present, take things as they come, except when Pat's away and something goes wrong back there. Get a little nervous still. Sorry, Pat. But one happy ending is, and the last slide, November 22nd, 2014, my last bucket list. I got baptized. Okay. Now, it's special because my boss, the president of the company, David, was there. How cool is that? I mean, in my last talk, I said, like, who goes to the same church as my boss? And how many bosses help you with your baptism? So I want to thank everyone who prayed for me, especially John Inamoto, who called me on Wednesday saying he can't make it, but he prayed for me. And a big apology to Nathan, because it wasn't 2 minutes. Sorry. Well, thank you, and now I can hide in the corner, right? Why?